in Consumer Behavior and Research, the course at the Republic Polytechnic.
Thank you.
And she leads a team of academics in the development of the Polytechnic's Consumer Insights Lab. And she works in FMCG, cosmetics, fragrances, F&B, sports and media, as well as the social sectors. We all know Jasmeet from earlier, and we've got Leonard from Singtel, one of the telcos here. He leads the customer intelligence projects in digital payments, regional video, and hyperlocal services for Singtel. I think you'll probably find your mobiles are all switched to Singtel, we hope. If not, choose it. And he's been both sides of the fence, you know. He's been a traitor to both sides. He's been an agency and he's been a client. And finally, the graduate of Monash University in Melbourne, James Fergusson, is CEO of Mobile Digital Indaba. Is that right pronunciation? A mobile-based consumer insights and big data analytics startup. Good sign from Ericsson there. You know, you got the wink. You got the wink about startups. And he's got offices in Australia and South Africa. And like many people here, he cut his teeth with TNS, as many people here did, or with Nielsen. Over to you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Good. We are talking about they were saying that the mic may not pick my voice up, but I think all of you can hear me, right? Okay. Probably to start off with, I really want to get my panel to probably introduce themselves, because a lot of time my friend says when you have a job description or you have a destination, it doesn't tell it all. Sometimes you do things that's beyond your work, and sometimes you do things that's nothing to do with your work. So let us probably give them a round of applause first, shall we? And we start off with Jasmeet. Go ahead.
Okay, so I think I did my formal introduction in the presentation earlier, but you know, I think moving to Stockholm has been you know, enlightening experience as a way. You know, when I moved to Stockholm, people told me that you're moving to a beautiful city but a depressing place because of the high suicide rate. So you know, after the research that I've shown, eventually, you know, I'm hoping I eventually don't land up in a similar situation. But you know, so it's been good so far. You know, with the family transition and stuff. From a work perspective, I think you know, work coming from Asia now moving to a global level, you do get a little bit overwhelmed with what's happening across the globe as a researcher. But it's increasingly important for us to keep, and for me personally, to keep a pulse with the industry and what's happening out here. So it's a great bunch of people out here. You know, every time at MRMW, we've had great bunch of people who believe in innovation, and I'm a firm believer of kind of challenging myself in a way. I don't like status quo for that matter. So I'm kind of pushing myself to be out there and trying out and meeting new startups and exploring new ways. So yeah, it's been enriching so far.
You know what? I just thought that you guys are quite quiet. Probably just for you to know more about them. I have 3 questions for you. Just pick one question and answer this question. Oh, he wants the middle one. Okay. It's all trap question anyway.
Okay. What do you love most about your job? Nothing. Relating to research. Okay. Great. What do you love most about your job? I think, you know, and this is a question that I had, you know, and I've even posted this to a lot of people, you know, is that, do you think you always wanted to be a market researcher? And as all people, you know, I never thought I'm going to be a market researcher as well. So sitting in a hardcore engineering organization, being a consumer researcher in itself, I think you're in a unique position. And that offers a lot of advantages in a way that you are speaking the voice of the consumer in a hardcore engineering organization, and it's valued a lot. It's an asset, and that's precisely why, you know, why I love my job. Listening to people, being close to them, forging good networks and being close to understanding cultural differences. I think it's a big, big value add, and I think we are in a unique position as researchers. We have the advantage of doing that.
Sounds exciting. Thank you. James?
I guess I had quite a big last 12 months. I moved countries, changed jobs, started a business, got married, had a baby, and then in our business, I do everything from make coffee, to clean the office, to write questionnaires, to negotiate and design research platforms. HR, and those of you who know me, it's not one of my strengths. But a startup is, it's really hard to articulate how challenging it is to people who haven't done it. It's possibly one of the most rewarding things you can do, but on the other hand, it's also one of the most stressful things you can do, because when you start out, a number of people come on board with you, putting their trust in an idea, and it's nothing more than an idea when you start out. And your job as the person who's heading it up is to make sure they get paid and that they get a fruitful career. And luckily for us, we're now at the stage where we've sort of broken through that, and we've got some nice critical mass revenue. We're now operating in 3 countries in our own right, and we're working for clients in another 7 or 8 countries. And we've got a really neat offer, and I'll tell you all about it when we present after lunch.
Thank you, James. This is your question.
But shocking handwriting.
I wanted to be a doctor.
What's the one dish that Singapore should keep in the menu forever? Chili crab, of course.
Got it? We're trying to get different research objectives within the same panel. Leonard?
Hi, I'm Leonard, Market Research Manager for Singtel. So I currently lead the customer intelligence projects for Singtel Digital Lives in areas such as digital payments, hyperlocal services, and regional video. I also lead and manage the Singtel Digital Advisors panel, where we give our customers an ongoing voice in the development of our products, services, and marketing communications. We also have panels in Indonesia and Australia. So in Singapore, the Singapore Digital Advisors panel, it's made up of our Singtel mobile customers who have at least minimum internet access and a smartphone. And I think what's so great about the Digital Advisors panel is that it gives us a lot of speed and flexibility in managing our studies. Speed because the panelists could answer our surveys and questions almost immediately when we launch a survey. And then a flexibility in the way that, we can also get results instantly and in real time. I think, yeah, that's what's so great about our panel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your question? What do you hate most about your job? Sorry. They picked the good one.
I think that's a very tough question because I love my job.
It's relating to research. Relating to research. Remember, it's nothing else. Or you have nothing to hate about your job.
I think what I hate could be something really challenging, which is working with technologies, upcoming technologies, and trying to adopt the technologies and trying to convince my stakeholders to adopt new technologies. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's more challenging to me and something that is negative.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Well, I'm from Republic Polytechnic. We actually started off a program in Diploma in Consumer Behavior and Research about 3 years ago with the help and support from EDB. Well, we are in the same community because we are training talent for your community eventually. And a lot of times I told some of the panelists and even some of the delegates over here, teaching and working in the industry is really quite different because a lot of times in the industry, everything is synthesized. You're thinking about what is the next biggest thing and what's the strategy for the next big thing for your consumer to come on board. But in teaching, a lot of times that we need to really unpack some of the concepts. What's pestle, what's Potter's 5 forces? I bet you don't remember anymore. But a lot of times when they ask me, when my student asks me, what's the difference between traditional research, like IDI, FGD, and also what's the difference between that and mobile research? It's really quite tough for 18 years old to understand. So actually, this is what I told them. In traditional research, right, you, like FGD, you invite them to your house, you buy them tea, you ask them questions, and later you took note of everything and make sense of everything they are willing to tell you. But for mobile research, for example, passive data analysis, you don't invite them to your house, you don't buy tea for them, but you actually watch the people at their home and see what they do at home and through their mobile network in the comfort of your home. So actually, one of the students asked me, so that means, oh, all of them are stalkers, is it? So that was their very candid response. But sorry if I misrepresent you. Maybe, Jasmeet, we could start off with you. A question. What do you really think mobile research is, if we're going to summarize it in 30 seconds?
Well, it's a tough one,
Yes,
to look at mobile research. I think largely mobile research today is being considered as a way for data collection, but I think it's much more than just as a way to collect data today. And how we see mobile research is probably not in a silo today.
Okay.
We're not going out and saying that to the suppliers as such that we want to do something in mobile research. We would largely go out with a business problem, a business issue, and then see if potentially taking mobile as a way of getting to the context really helps us or not. And that's the way how I would see. I would not like to coin mobile research or define mobile research in a way. I think it's much more than just a way to collect data. And for us, it's probably it's probably integrated in the way research is being done today. I mean, two or 3 years back, when I used to attend conferences, people used to ask me, "Oh, what are you doing on mobile?" I don't get these questions now because I think mobile is a taken. The fact is, if you're designing for an online survey, most likely almost 15 to 20% of your responses are coming from mobile respondents. So it's all a part of, it's a culture today, and ignoring it would probably be a big mistake.
You shared quite a lot just now about mobile research. What do you think is the adoption rate of Asia right now? Maybe just.
Well, I shared those numbers which are coming from the grid report, and I firmly believe those numbers are quite validated from what we see internally happening as well. Mobile is taking a lead as far as Asia is concerned. We did see almost 33% of researchers doing mobile surveys. And even mobile qualitative approaches, Asia is far ahead in terms of North America and Europe. And the reason why this is happening is largely to do with the dynamics of the market today. There is a supplier glut today with more and more suppliers offering cheaper online research. And that's creating an oversupply in the market, especially in the Europe and North America. And it gives less incentive for the researchers to go out and try mobile when you could probably do cheaper research on the online side and still get those results. Whereas Asia, I think it's a mobile first sort of markets. The question does not arise. I think it's always going to be much more feasible for us to target respondents with mobiles in a way. And that's what you see with the results coming out there.
James, you come from a very different background. Tell us your view.
Yeah, my perspective is your traditional research respondents are treated as if they're the people you don't like, because our industry, I think one of the biggest weaknesses of the market research industry is the way we treat the consumers, the people that we research. And expecting them to do questionnaires of over 20 minutes, expecting them to be able to fill in a questionnaire designed for a PC on a mobile phone, and also, I guess, not valuing their time and not respecting their time and not respecting their lives. Whereas mobile is conducted, if done properly, with the people we like, because it engages them on their terms. They can do the survey whenever and wherever they are and at their convenience. But I think as an industry as a whole, we've missed a major trick. Everyone's talking about mobile as a data collection technique. Mobile is the biggest disruptor to consumer behaviour, the availability of products and services, the way that brands communicate their offers since the bloody steam engine in the 1700s. And the steam engine was the founding thing in the modern consumer, in terms of modern retail, in terms of mass production, and mobile is having exactly the same impact. Yet here we are as a market research industry saying, oh yeah, we'll just push the same old shit onto mobile. The way consumers are making decisions has changed. The way marketing works in organisations has changed. The fundamentals of market research have to change.
Do you think Asian is ready? Do you think Asia is ready for mobile?
Well, yeah, of course it is.
Why? Why do you
Because
think so?
penetration's over 100%. It's the only way you can get a representative sample cost effectively. And the other failing of our industry is we're letting our clients down because we charge too much for old information and take too long to deliver it.
Okay.
Why? Because we're asking 20, 30, 40-minute questionnaires around claimed or stated behaviour when we've got the opportunity to ask people about actual and measure actual behaviour, overcoming the fundamental weakness of our industry. So it's time to wake up, guys,
Okay.
because if we don't, and we don't do things more cost effectively, more quickly, we're going to be completely irrelevant to the brands that we service. And they'll start to do more and more in-house because it's very hard to add value when you're delivering behind the organisation's time needs.
Probably at this point of time, I just want to open the discussion to the floor.
Right, to James's point, entirely agree with you. Questionnaires too long, but the root cause of the problem, particularly in Asia with very small research budgets, I mean really small compared to what you see in Western Europe and the US, is that clients are just trying to cram too much into one study, and this is just one of the consequences. So I think it's, clients have got to understand.
Speak up a bit louder.
Clients have got to understand that you can't get so much into one survey, and they should be doing more of them. But ultimately, that comes down to budgets being increased.
Yeah, I'm probably going to alienate myself more now because to a certain extent, my experience and most of my experience has been in setting up MDI initially in South Africa and also in Australia. Interestingly, the South African clients are much more progressive and much more in tune with what's going on than the Australian clients because they've seen firsthand as a quasi-developed, quasi-emerging market the impact mobile's had on people's lives and the impact of quality of life. Whereas in Australia, the insights managers are more concerned with not upsetting their historic data than actually improving things. But if you do mobile properly and you utilise the technology in the right way, utilise secondary data sources in the right way, it's actually way cheaper than traditional research. The most expensive thing with traditional research is face-to-face fieldwork. Mobile eliminates that.
Yeah, I believe the main barrier, we all know that we have to change the way we do research in terms of how a questionnaire should look like. It should be shorter, it should look different on mobile. I think we have seen many good presentations about that in the past couple of days. I think the main barrier still is the sampling issue. As long as most people in Asia don't have a smartphone, you can't resolve the sampling issue. Yeah, so most people have feature phones and they are not on panels, and basically the design on a feature phone doesn't really work very well.
I think there's three organisations in this room, including ourselves, who disagree with you. We can deliver the same offer on feature phones as we do with smartphones. including longitudinal quantitative, capturing images as survey responses, chat individually in a WhatsApp, BBM type environment, and also as group. We can also do passive on feature phones. There's not a lot to measure. And so with the right technology, you can actually deliver on feature phones.
I don't think technology is an issue. It's the people which you don't have in your databases. But okay, that's a continuous argument we're having with a lot of panel companies. Yeah.
Yep. But we've got Daniel over here. How many have you got in terms of people on feature phones available for research?
Who are you directing the question to?
And what we find with our technology is when we push it out there, it goes somewhat viral because it cuts the cost of messaging by 100-fold. So one of the challenges we've got in Australia is keeping Indonesians and Nigerians and Iraqis off our Australian community because they've picked it up. And we've got almost as many people coming in from emerging markets as we have in our home market.
I think it's quite interesting as we are talking to some of our panelists and even delegates. I think this topic itself, even, we have been, it's kind of new, it's kind of niche, but in the sense that there's so many things that's happening. But I guess there's still multiple different opinions that's coming across from agencies, from the owner side. Probably I just want to move on very quickly to Singtel, Leonard, just a little bit. Tell us a little bit about some of the new initiatives you're doing. Over lunches, you were telling me that there were some new initiatives on setting up new consumer panels. And how did it come about?
Just a background. As a Singtel, we have a unique approach to actually track consumers' mobility patterns. We actually got consent from our panelists to track their mobility patterns. So this provided us with unparalleled insights as we are able to fuse big data with the mobility patterns as well as survey findings from our panel. So we are not only able to find out what they are doing on their mobile phones, but actually the reasons behind such activities. So some of the studies that we have done before include like mobile path to purchase. And it's actually, I understand that there are a lot of studies on this topic that was done before, but we took this one level up by understanding what they're actually doing on their mobile phones while they are shopping instead of asking them directly on surveys. So how we did it was we asked them in a pre-shopping survey, for example, which shopping mall do they intend to visit in the next 2 months, in the next 2 weeks. So once we know what are shopping malls they will visit in the next 2 weeks, we actually track them in the following 2 weeks to see if they're actually in these shopping malls. And when they're in these shopping malls, we actually track what kind of activities they do on their mobile phones, which websites they go to, how long were they spending on their mobile phone, and how long were they at the malls itself. So once with that, we follow up with a post-survey to understand the reasons behind such activities. So basically, mobile research can be shortened because we already know the actual behavior of these people. Yeah.
Tell me about the privacy issue here.
So all our panelists, 12,000 in Singapore, have given us consent to track their mobile behavior. So there's no privacy issue at all. And also because all our data are aggregated and anonymized. So we don't present individual level data to our clients and internal stakeholders.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a question over there.
Actually, I have two questions, but so one is for Mr. Lim, so let me ask that. So this type of research, is it feasible in other countries, particularly European countries and?
Yeah, I think definitely because for telcos especially, we have the data, the mobility patterns data of our customers, and then if you combine this data with research finding, I think it will provide you with much richer insights.
I understand that, but is it allowed by?
As long as you get the consent from your customers.
Okay.
Yeah, you need consent.
Could I just ask the delegate, I mean, from which context were you thinking from? Maybe you could share with us.
I'm Pradipta from Procter & Gamble,
Okay.
which is one of the
Yes.
big elephants that you're showing. So you're slow. The other question I have is actually for everybody. In certain countries like China, Japan, in the traditional survey, we see that people, I wouldn't say they lie, but they are very polite. They do not give very bad rating. Even when we place products that we know, we are deliberately placing some bad products. So, do you see, from your experience, that the mobile survey can improve that situation when people will tell the real truth?
Yes. What I'm seeing is verbatims and qualitative open-ended responses in mobile are far more frank and open than when compared to face-to-face research in particular. And what we've noticed is a lot of the traditional differences at a gender level, and particularly around emotion, have actually been eliminated with mobile, and I'll talk about this later on. But in South Africa, we threw a question out there, and we found that the male responses were equally as emotive and talking about their inner needs as the female responses. You would not get that in face-to-face research, and you wouldn't get that in a focus group situation. The other thing is, in terms of reinventing research for mobile, to get quantitative primary data with mobile, again, depending on how your platform works, you don't actually have to ask a survey. You can just get one question in an open-ended sense, code it, and then append it to your establishment data or your own organisational data. And some of the work we're doing with Yum in particular has really taken advantage of that.
Jasmeet, your topic was on how the lies come back to haunt you. What's your response to that?
Well, I would say it basically depends on what you're measuring, and I would agree with you. When you're looking at markets like Japan and South Korea, just as an example, if we were to take net promoter scores, right, which is consumer advocacy, we see big changes when you're measuring Japan and Korea vis-a-vis other European markets or even North America. People won't use the extreme end of the scale, and you would find that the net promoter scores of most banking institutions, even telecom operators, are probably in the range of -50 or -60, which is very, very strange. So we do see that, and I don't think it's going to make a difference if you do online or mobile, because it's largely a cultural sort of an issue. And it then boils down to how you interpret those results, whether you are rationalizing the reasons behind why people respond the way they respond. Though I do see a value in the moment response. For example, if you take customer satisfaction surveys, we know that these are marred by a poor recall in a way. Though if customer satisfaction is then taken to in the moment response, you would see that you would get much better sort of real value coming out of in the moment. People are much more critical. And in the moment response, when you probably had a bad experience or so, we have seen people report a lot of issues when they receive poor performance in a way, rather than people responding to customer satisfaction survey. In fact, we did a research and we found that only 2% of people who are disgruntled actually respond to a customer satisfaction survey, right? Because they don't even want to take the pain to let you know the experience that they've had. Though imagine if you had an app on your phone and you could in the moment respond to your operator about the issue that you're facing. We have seen people report on an average 8 to 9 issues a day, which is very high. And you get a lot more qualitative inputs from that. So in the moment is the real value. The context is the real value out there.
I guess, sorry, there's another question over there. Sorry, it's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Linda. I would like to provide an educational or training perspective. I'm very curious about, the effectiveness of programs, and that is, in a sense, a product training program or even a learning experience where you curate, say, in an exhibition hall and things like that. And I would see a lot of potential for mobile research in knowing how long I've spent at the exhibits, how much I get out of it, and my high moments and my low moments. So whether it's an exhibition, whether it's a museum, whether it's even library, browsing habits of learners and things like that. So I see a lot of potential in the educational sector.
In fact, I think mobile will revolutionise, not just from an insights perspective, but from a logistical perspective, things like retail audits, checking compliance with new point of sale materials. It completely disrupts the cost model. And what we're seeing around mystery shopping in Australia is that it takes at least a third out of a national program in terms of cost. And also, you don't have to pay the participants or the shoppers as much because the task is reduced, because it's all done on the smartphone without them having to go and re-enter it. So you've got higher validity of data. You can also use the image capture to validate it, so the findings have a lot more effectiveness within the organisation as well.
Yeah, I do agree that mobile research gives us a lot of value, especially at Singtel, because we are also looking at capability in doing in the moment kind of surveys, because we do see the value. So we actually have capabilities such as, for example, taking pictures when they are shopping, for example, taking pictures of their receipts. So we don't actually need consumers to actually tell us how much they spend, for example. We can look at the receipts and then do our analysis based on that.
Yeah. Can I just add? I think when you look at, we're talking about the take-up rates and things like that. We look at early adopters. I think if we look at mobile research as providing a different angle to complement the plethora of data that exists, then there is less of that, more of this and less of this. But we are richer because mobile research has provided us another dimension to understanding the customer.
Yeah.
Then the people with traditional research methods, very good methods, will not feel so threatened. And I think once we get to that point of understanding how we can collaborate with each other, then we would be very happy.
Interestingly, there was a conversation over tea that, because the community over here represented by mobile, I mean the mobile research people. Question here is that the people from the traditional side ask, is it true that I'm going to get out of job soon? But yeah, let's respond to that.
I think that our industry is maintaining a lot of questionable and poor practices because large organisations are protecting their cash cows, to be quite frank. And the reason for that is, one of the most profitable things in our industry is online access panels. However, when we think about what we're asking people to do on those panels and the intrusiveness into consumers' lives and the quality of the data coming through, we've got to start to question. Because, you hear some organisations bandying around the term, we're device agnostic. The fact is, mobile has a lot of advantages, it's also got a lot of disadvantages. But you can either have a survey designed for mobile or a survey designed for a PC. They don't cross over. The biggest strength of mobile is image capture to validate and measure actual behaviour. You can't do that on a PC. So it's not having a foot in each camp, I'm afraid. If we're going to deliver and reflect how consumers are making decisions, we've got to embrace change.
I think I'd just like to add what James said. I mean, and it's a burning question right now because we are confronted with a lot of questions about whether the way we do market research is going to be obsolete. Are we going to be, essentially out of jobs? I think the whole debate is a little bit overhyped to an extent, and we believe that there is a place for probably, a traditional qualitative researcher who can provide good context. There is a place for a technology platform provider who comes with the technology. There is a place for full service agencies as well. Though the challenge that it is bringing in front of us is that it's becoming increasingly fragmented. In typical projects, what we are seeing is that we have to make the marriage work. And that means we have to kind of do the matchmaking between a full service research agency, a guy who's coming with a cool technology, and probably a specialized qualitative research agency. We haven't seen players who probably have an integrated approach, right? So in most cases, we have to do the matchmaking, and that is the most stressful part. But I think the whole debate about it, whether it's going to be obsolete with big data coming in and not, I think it's also a question about competency within our industry. Are we preparing the young researchers to deal with the new technology or new innovations that are coming in, and how are we kind of preparing them for such sort of challenges going forward? Because I don't think in the real way we do market research 5 or 6 years down the line, you will be talking about smartphones. It will not be a smartphone that would matter. Today it's probably the smartphone that we're talking about, but 5 or 10 years down the line, maybe it's going to be data that's coming from your socks, your shoes, your watch, your glasses, and that's the level of competency that you would need. Probably not a typical market researcher in a way, but people who also understand different data channels and different data streams and can analyze it.
I think from the academia point of view, I totally think that the traditional has its role and mobile has its role. And even because there's some challenge that even in some of our conversation, we talk about the curriculum. When we teach our students, do we teach them only on mobile because mobile is the way to go? Or do we still have to include traditional as part of the curriculum? It's always a challenge, it's always a tension over there. My students are going to graduate in like next 2 months or 3 months. If the curriculum only takes care of mobile, the question is the industry ready for them? That's also another counter questions that we have to consider. But perhaps I would want to say that it's true, we have to embrace change and things are going fast and we just need to keep ourselves at pace. I just want to direct one question probably to Leonard. The question on, there's so many things happening over at different platforms. You are research buyer and, but you're also doing your own research. You're putting it such a big initiative to look at your data panel. So what's the role, what do you think of your role perhaps complementing, do you think that the agencies are supporting you, or do you think that eventually you can take over the whole of research job that Singtel
I think
require?
this question has been raised several times before. So basically we do,
Okay, right after this, there's the question.
Okay. So basically, we don't see agencies as competitors. In fact, we see them as partners, because our team basically is very small. We do have the capabilities to do research, but not on a big scale. So we see agencies as partners, and also there are some studies which we think cannot be conducted by us, for example.
Okay.
Not all studies can be conducted by us. So for example, if you are doing a branding study, we shouldn't be the ones doing the branding study.
Yeah.
We need outside agencies to help do it for us. So we see agencies as partners.
Okay, that's good news, yeah, for everyone. Over there?
Yeah, hi. I'll declare my interest to say we're a good partner of Singtel's, but aside from that, Jasmeet, I guess I would respectfully disagree with the fact that it's overhyped in terms of the industry. I think the shifts that are happening around the world, and in no bigger parts than Asia, is that the way brands are spending money on research are changing really quickly. So I think that there is a real issue in terms of the type of work that is available, and I don't think it's overhyped. I think and again, what Leonard's talking about, the Singtel example of actually trying to solve some of these issues using passive, fusing their own big data to kind of help the lies versus stated versus what people say, to solve some of the recruitment issues. Recruitment's getting increasingly expensive, and actually the brands do have or the people. They just need to get access themselves to them, and if you kind of get access to the people and you respect them and treat the privacy in the right way, and you do give people questions and interactions when they want them in the form they want them, then you can do that. And the industry can actually make good money by, with lots of buyers of research insourcing their own work and just working on things that you can make money on.
I think when I said the whole discussion is overhyped, is largely you're looking at conversations that we have had in terms of whether big data is going to make market research obsolete. And that, I think, that conversation is indeed overhyped, because what it does is really probably create a bigger opportunity for market researchers. Big data can only take you so much. And what you really need to get to is essentially, the motivations, the behavior, where I think qualitative researchers are, you definitely need that sort of competency in a way. So when we're talking about such conversations, and I think it's a lingo which is often used in conferences to sensationalize, the event is market research is going to be dead by 2020 or something like that. I don't believe that is going to be the case. Moreover, I think with the pace the market research is going, yes, we need to embrace the change. But I think with all the technologies that's coming in, it creates a bigger opportunity for the industry out here to probably evolve and garner more business. Look at, who would have imagined so many technology players now, and even app developers who had no understanding of market research, now actually playing a big part in this particular industry. So we have seen the industry expand from full service agencies to technology players, to app developers, to startups, who are now all part of the ecosystem.
I'm going to disagree as well. I agree. Some of the technology developers don't get it. There's also a number of developers who do get it. And I agree with you, Pete. I reckon it's underhyped. The fact that there's not more people at this conference is a factor to that. The fact is, mobile is very quickly becoming the #1 way in which organisations engage with consumers and the #1 influencer on purchasing decisions. It's also the #1 way in terms of how consumers interact with themselves and their broader groups. For me, the critical success factor in an effective market research methodology is one that reflects consumers' behaviour and doesn't ask them to take a leap of faith. We have to engage them on their terms. And that is via mobile. And sure, we'll be able to get data from stocks, we're going to be able to get data from wearables and blah, 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 but nothing's going to come along and replace mobile in the too distant future as the #1 utilised technology in the world. How it's utilised will evolve and change, and research will have to evolve and change with that. But it's not just a data collection technique. It fundamentally changes the effectiveness of our industry. All of a sudden, we go from measuring stated claim behaviour months ago to actual behaviour really cost effectively. It creates all sorts of issues potentially for some of the larger groups, Kantar World Panel and Nielsen, because all of a sudden the barriers to entry to what they've built have been completely disrupted. It's very exciting, but we have to change. It's not just about data collection. It's how we structure our research has to change. You can't go and ask 40 minutes on a mobile phone and expect to have sensible information from a consumer. You ask questions in different ways. It's a new skill set.
You know what? I thought at this point, it's quite interesting that the conversation is going on, and the conversation is still going on even while the lunch is waiting for us. I sort of have to wrap this up because David is hungry. I'm hungry.
No, one more second.
Both of us are hungry. But probably to just wrap this up very quickly, I thought personally this is a burning question, perhaps, even for my students over there. Something that is very interesting about research, why you are keeping in this business, is probably understanding the behavior of people. Could you just maybe, gentlemen, just share with us any thoughts about any particular difference about certain kind of consumer in a certain region?
I'll be quick. One of the things that we found is we have a community for KFC in South Africa of about 10,000 people, and it's been so powerful to the marketing team because for the first time ever, the upper middle class brand managers are understanding the relationship their brand has with people living in the town.
Which country was that?
Sorry?
Which country was that?
South Africa.
Okay.
And it'll be, we're rolling this out in a number of markets around this region as well. It'll have the same impact. People who make marketing decisions come from different worlds from their consumers. And mobile puts them in the pocket, in the lives, in the moment with their consumers. Market research hasn't been able to do that cost effectively up until now. Ethnography, not very cost effective.
Okay. Anything to share, Leonard? Just to wrap us up.
Yeah, so as you know, we have a panel in Indonesia, and we realized that Indonesians are more tolerant towards longer surveys. You'll be surprised. And one of the reasons why is because they are caught in traffic during their daily commute, and they don't mind taking some time, some effort to fill out longer surveys.
Steer with the knee. Steer with the knee.
On their motorbike.
Okay, I think we only have 30 seconds left. Jasmeet, do you
No,
have anything to share?
I'd just like to close by saying, I mean, rather than taking the question where we have discussed the regional differences when Japan and Korea are looking at how people look at consumer experience, I mean, these markets essentially need to be looked at with a different lens. And culture is an important perspective. I mean, we have seen people, the way that they respond on different questions, even on different platforms is very different. And that needs to be adopted, especially when you're in Asia with markets like Japan and Korea. We have seen people in Mexico and LATAM, you know, over-exaggerating a lot of the responses. So instantly you can make out exactly when you look at the data, you know where the discrepancies are and how to interpret the data and rationalize it to some extent. So culture and understanding of cultural nuances is going to be very, very important.
Okay. Okay, people, I think the conversation can go on. We're going to wrap this out. And shall we give a round of applause to the panel?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.